Labor unions across the University of California system are suing the Trump administration, claiming the president is illegally withholding federal funding. The unions rallied in San Francisco today.
Here in San Francisco, just outside the UCSF campus in Mission Bay, representatives from almost all UC labor unions were adamant the Trump administration cannot impose certain restrictions. According to the lawsuit, the administration withheld over $500 million in research funds to UCLA because the school was partaking in illegal affirmative action and anti-Semitism and bias. The various union groups said the president is trying to coerce colleges and universities across the country to limit speech rights for those on campus.
All right, look, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you is genuinely insane. And I mean that. This isn't some conspiracy theory floating around on Reddit. This is real. This is happening right now. And honestly, most people have no idea. So here's the deal. October 16th, 2025. Yesterday, while you were scrolling through your feed, probably watching cat videos or whatever, 3 of the biggest labor unions in America just filed a massive lawsuit against the Trump administration. I'm talking the United Auto Workers, the Communications Workers of America, and the American Federation of Teachers. These aren't fringe groups, okay? These are heavyweight organizations representing millions of workers. And what are they suing over? Get this. They're accusing Trump's government of running a secret AI surveillance program that's literally spying on people's social media posts. Yeah, you heard that right. An actual digital spy network. Tracking what you say online, and not just tracking it, using it against you. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. Now, before you roll your eyes and think this is just another political stunt, let me hit you with the details, because this is where it gets wild. The lawsuit claims, and I'm reading directly from the court documents here, that the State Department and Homeland Security have been using artificial intelligence to scan through social media posts. Specifically, they're looking for people who criticize Israel or U.S. foreign policy. And when they find those posts, they're flagging those users as potential security threats. Can you believe this? And we're not talking about American citizens here. Well, actually, we kind of are. The targets are visa holders and lawful residents, people who are here legally, people who followed every rule, filled out every form, waited in every line, and now they're being watched because they dared to have an opinion online. But here's the kicker. The unions say this isn't about national security at all. They're calling it viewpoint monitoring. That's the term they use in the lawsuit. Viewpoint monitoring, which is just a fancy way of saying the government is policing your thoughts. And look, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, come on, if you're not doing anything wrong, why worry? Or maybe, well, if they're here on a visa, don't they have to follow certain rules? Yeah, except those rules don't include giving up your First Amendment rights. And that's exactly what the lawsuit is arguing, that this whole operation is a targeted attack on free speech. And it gets worse. The lawsuit includes survey data, real numbers from actual UAW members. And get this, over 60% of UAW members said they've changed their social media habits because they're scared of government monitoring. 60%. That's more than half. And among non-citizen members, that number jumps to 80%. 80%. Let that sink in for a second. 4 out of 5 non-citizen union members are literally censoring themselves online because they're terrified the government is watching. They're scared of being deported, scared of losing their visas, scared of being labeled a threat. For what? For posting an opinion? This is wild. And you know what makes this even crazier? Trump's State Department basically confirmed it. Yeah, on October 16th, the State Department posted on X. That's Twitter, by the way. Still can't get used to calling it X. Anyway, they posted that aliens exploiting America's hospitality while glorifying violence would be expelled from the country. Now, on the surface, that sounds reasonable, right? Nobody wants people glorifying violence. But here's the thing. The lawsuit argues that this is proof the administration is selectively enforcing these rules based on political views, that they're using vague terms like glorifying violence to target people who criticize Israel or Trump's policies. So basically, if you're an immigrant and you post something critical about Israel's actions in Gaza, you might get flagged. If you criticize Trump's immigration policies, you might get flagged. And once you're flagged, good luck keeping your visa. Are you kidding me right now? This isn't some fringe accusation from a random activist group. This is the United Auto Workers, the Communications Workers of America, the American Federation of Teachers. These are massive, established institutions, and they're not just writing angry letters. They're going to federal court in New York. They've teamed up with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, one of the most respected digital rights organizations in the country, and they're saying flat out that Trump is running a digital blacklist, a blacklist, in 2025. Think about what that word means, a blacklist. It's not just surveillance. It's not just monitoring. It's actively compiling a list of people who have the wrong opinions and then using that list to punish them. We've seen this before in American history, the Hollywood blacklist, the McCarthy era, the FBI's COINTELPRO program targeting civil rights leaders. Every time we look back and say, that was wrong, that violated our values. We should never do that again. And yet, here we are, doing it again. Except this time, it's faster, more efficient, more invisible. So yeah, that's where we are right now. And honestly, this might be the most important free speech fight of Trump's second term. Because if the government can use AI to monitor your posts and punish you for your opinions, then what's stopping them from doing this to everyone? Let's dive in. Okay, so let's talk about what's actually happening here. Because I think a lot of people are going to hear AI surveillance and immediately tune out. Either they think it's too tech heavy to understand, or they assume this kind of thing has always been happening and it's no big deal. But here's the thing. This is different, and you need to understand why. First off, let's get the timeline straight. This lawsuit was filed on October 16th, 2025 in federal court in New York. The plaintiffs, that's the people suing, are the United Auto Workers, the Communications Workers of America, the American Federation of Teachers, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. The defendants, the U.S. State Department and the Department of Homeland Security, and the charge is ideological surveillance. That's the actual term used in the lawsuit, ideological surveillance, which is basically the government watching you, not because of what you do, but because of what you think. Now, why are unions leading this fight? That's actually a really good question, and the answer tells you a lot about what's going on. See, unions represent workers, and a huge chunk of the American workforce, especially in manufacturing, communications, and education, are immigrants, lawful residents, people on work visas, people who came here legally and are contributing to the economy, paying taxes, raising families, doing everything right. But now, according to this lawsuit, those workers are being targeted, and it's creating what the unions call a chilling effect on free speech. That's a legal term. It means people are so scared of the consequences that they stop speaking up entirely. And look, the numbers back this up. The lawsuit cites internal surveys showing that more than 60% of UAW members have changed their social media behavior because of fear of government monitoring. And among non-citizen members, 80%. 80%. Think about what that means. 4 out of 5 immigrant union members are literally censoring themselves online. They're not posting opinions. They're not sharing news articles. They're not even liking posts that might be seen as critical of the government because they're terrified. And why are they terrified? Because according to the lawsuit, people are already facing consequences. Visa revocations, deportation threats, being flagged as security risks. For what? For posting on social media. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The lawsuit alleges that the Trump administration is using AI, artificial intelligence, to automate this process. They're not sitting there reading every single post manually. They've built a system that scans social media automatically and flags certain keywords, phrases, or topics. And what topics are they flagging? According to the unions, posts that criticize Israel, posts that criticize U.S. foreign policy, posts that criticize Trump's immigration policies. So basically, if you're an immigrant and you post something like, I disagree with what's happening in Gaza, boom, you're flagged. If you post, I think Trump's immigration policies are unfair, boom, you're flagged. And once you're flagged, your visa application gets scrutinized, or your renewal gets denied, or you get a visit from Homeland Security. Can you believe this? And look, I know some people are going to say, well, if you're here on a visa, you don't have the same rights as citizens. And okay, fine. Technically, there are differences. But here's the thing. The First Amendment doesn't just apply to citizens. It applies to anyone on U.S. soil. That's been settled law for decades. You can be here on a tourist visa and still have the right to free speech. You can be here on a work visa and still have the right to criticize the government. That's what makes America, well, America. But according to this lawsuit, the Trump administration is saying, no, actually, if you're here on a visa and you say something we don't like, we can kick you out. And that's terrifying because here's the slippery slope. Today, it's immigrants and visa holders. Tomorrow, it's lawful residents. The day after that, it's naturalized citizens. And eventually, it's all of us. Because once the government has a system in place to monitor and punish speech, once that infrastructure exists, it's only a matter of time before it gets expanded. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's just how power works. You give the government a tool, and they're going to use it. And then they're going to find new ways to use it. Now let's talk about Trump's defense. Because on October 16th, the same day the lawsuit was filed, the State Department posted on X. And here's what they said, and I'm quoting directly. Aliens exploiting America's hospitality while glorifying violence would be expelled. Okay, so on the surface, that sounds reasonable. Nobody wants people glorifying violence. I think we can all agree on that. But here's the problem. Who defines glorifying violence? Because according to the lawsuit, the administration is using that term super loosely. Like if you post support for Palestinian resistance, they're calling that glorifying violence. If you criticize Israeli military actions, they're calling that glorifying violence. And look, you might have opinions on the Israel-Palestine situation. That's fine, we all do. But the point is, having an opinion shouldn't get you deported. And that's what the unions are arguing. They're saying the Trump administration is using vague terms like glorifying violence and national security threat to target people based on their political views, which, by the way, is exactly what happened during the McCarthy era. Remember that? The 1950s? When the government was blacklisting people for being suspected communists, when having the wrong opinion could cost you your job, your reputation, your entire life? Yeah, this is the digital version of that, except now, instead of a House committee grilling you in front of TV cameras, it's an algorithm scanning your tweets. And instead of being blacklisted from Hollywood, you're being deported from the country. And honestly, that might be even scarier, because at least with McCarthy, you knew who your accusers were. You could defend yourself, you could fight back. But with AI surveillance, you don't even know you're being watched. You don't know what triggered the flag. You don't know who made the decision. It's all automated. It's all invisible. And by the time you find out, it's too late. So, yeah, that's why this lawsuit matters. That's why unions are leading the charge, because they're watching their members, hardworking people who came here legally, being silenced and threatened for having opinions. And they're saying, no, this stops here. Now let me tell you something else that's not getting enough attention. The Electronic Frontier Foundation didn't just jump into this lawsuit for fun. They're one of the most respected digital rights organizations in the world. They've been fighting for online privacy and free speech since 1990. And when they get involved in a case, it means something serious is happening. The EFF has been tracking government surveillance programs for decades. They fought against the NSA's warrantless wiretapping. They've challenged facial recognition technology. They've stood up against every major digital rights violation in recent history. And now they're saying this AI surveillance program is one of the most dangerous things they've ever seen. Think about that for a second. An organization that has seen everything from secret NSA programs to corporate data harvesting to government backdoors and encryption is saying this is one of the worst threats to digital rights they've encountered. That should tell you something. And here's another angle that's important. This isn't just about immigrants. This is about setting precedents. Because if the courts allow this program to continue, if they say it's legal for the government to use AI to monitor speech and punish people for their opinions, then that becomes the new standard. And once that standard exists, it applies to everyone, citizens included. Because legal precedents don't stay contained. They expand. They get applied to new situations. They become the foundation for even more invasive programs. So when the unions say this affects all of us, they're not exaggerating. They're being literal. All right, let's break this down into the key points you need to understand, because I know this is a lot and some of it sounds like dystopian fiction, but it's real and it's happening right now. So here are the 4 big takeaways. Point 1, this is about free speech. Look, I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum. Left, right, center, doesn't matter. Free speech is free speech. And the moment the government starts punishing people for their opinions, we've crossed the line. And that's exactly what the unions are arguing here. They're saying the Trump administration has built a system that monitors what you say online and uses it against you. And not because you're breaking any laws, not because you're threatening anyone, but because you have the wrong opinion. And yeah, technically this is targeting visa holders and lawful residents. But here's the thing. If the government can do it to them, they can do it to anyone. Because once the infrastructure is in place, once the algorithms are trained, once the system is running, it's just a matter of expanding the target list. Today it's immigrants who criticize Israel. Tomorrow it's citizens who criticize Trump. And the day after that, who knows? That's the slippery slope. And that's why this matters. The First Amendment exists for a reason. It's not there to protect popular speech. It's there to protect unpopular speech. Because if the government can silence people just for having controversial opinions, then we don't really have free speech at all. We just have government-approved speech. And that's not freedom. That's control. Think about the Revolutionary War. Think about the founders. They literally fought a war because the British government was trying to control what colonists could say and publish. The First Amendment wasn't an afterthought. It was the First Amendment because they understood that free speech is the foundation of every other right. Without free speech, you can't protest, you can't organize, you can't challenge the government, you can't hold power accountable. And that's exactly what's at stake here. Point 2. This is about immigration. Let's be real. This doesn't exist in a vacuum. Trump's second term has been all about immigration. Operation Midway in Chicago, mass deportations, border crackdowns. This is part of a broader strategy. And look, you can have whatever opinion you want about immigration policy, but here's what we can't ignore. When you create a climate of fear, when you make immigrants feel like they're constantly being watched, you're not just enforcing laws, you're silencing people. And that's exactly what the surveys show. 80% of non-citizen UAW members have changed their social media behavior because they're scared. They're scared of being flagged, scared of being labeled a threat, scared of losing everything. And that fear, that's intentional. Because when people are scared, they don't speak up, they don't organize, they don't fight back. So yeah, this isn't just about free speech. It's about power. It's about control. It's about making sure that immigrants, even legal immigrants, know their place. And that should worry all of us. Because here's the thing about fear. It spreads. When immigrants are too scared to post on social media, their citizen friends start getting scared too. When someone gets deported for criticizing the government, everyone else thinks twice before speaking up. And before you know it, we're all self-censoring. We're all watching what we say. We're all looking over our shoulders. And that's exactly what authoritarianism looks like. It doesn't start with jackboots and secret police. It starts with fear, with uncertainty, with people deciding it's just safer to stay quiet. Operation Midway, by the way, is Trump's massive immigration enforcement operation targeting Chicago. It's been all over the news, thousands of ICE agents, checkpoints, raids, and yes, some people support it. They say it's about enforcing the law. But here's what the unions are arguing. When you combine aggressive enforcement, like Operation Midway, with secret surveillance programs, you're not just enforcing laws. You're creating a police state. Because now immigrants don't just have to worry about getting caught doing something illegal. They have to worry about being flagged for having an opinion. Point 3. This is about AI and surveillance. Here's something that's not getting enough attention. The fact that this is automated. The fact that it's AI driven. Because that changes everything. See, in the past, if the government wanted to spy on you, they had to put in effort. They had to get a warrant, assign agents, build a case. There were checks and balances. There was oversight. But with AI, you don't need any of that. You just feed the algorithm a list of keywords and let it run. It scans millions of posts in seconds. It flags anyone who matches the criteria, and it does it all invisibly. No warrants, no oversight, no accountability, and that's terrifying. Because once you automate surveillance, you've removed the human element. There's no one to question the decision, no one to say, wait, maybe we're going too far. It's just the algorithm said so, and that's that. And look, I'm not anti-technology. I'm not saying AI is inherently evil, but I am saying that when you give the government a tool this powerful with zero oversight, bad things happen. And that's exactly what the Electronic Frontier Foundation is arguing. They're saying this system violates the First Amendment. It violates due process, and it sets a dangerous precedent for how surveillance technology can be used. The problem with AI surveillance is that it's so efficient. In the old days, if the government wanted to monitor dissidents, they had to actually dedicate resources, real people, real time, real money, and that meant they had to prioritize. They had to focus on actual threats. But now, the algorithm can monitor everyone, all the time, for basically no cost. And that means the government doesn't have to prioritize anymore. They can just flag everyone who says anything remotely critical and then sort through the results later. It's like having a massive dragnet that catches everything. And sure, most of what you catch isn't a real threat, but who cares? The algorithm did the work. You didn't have to lift a finger. Except that's not how justice is supposed to work. That's not how rights are supposed to work. You can't just surveil everyone and then decide later who's actually done something wrong. That's called a fishing expedition, and it's supposed to be illegal. Point 4. This is about what comes next. So where does this go from here? Well, the lawsuit is in federal court in New York, and honestly, this could take years to resolve. We're talking appeals, counter motions, the whole legal circus. But here's what we know. This is going to be a major flashpoint heading into the 2026 midterms because it's everything people are already fighting about. Free speech, immigration, government overreach, civil liberties, and it pits Trump directly against organized labor and digital rights activists, which is kind of a big deal because if the unions win, it could dismantle this entire surveillance program. It could set new precedents for AI oversight. It could force the government to actually respect free speech. But if Trump wins, if the courts say this is legal, then we've just opened the door to a whole new era of government surveillance, and there's no going back. The implications here are massive. If the court rules that the government can use AI to monitor social media and punish people for their political views, that becomes precedent. That becomes the new normal. And once that door is open, every future administration, Democrat or Republican, is going to walk right through it. Because let's be real, this isn't really about Trump. Trump's just the one who built this particular system. But the next president, they're going to inherit it, and they're going to use it too. Maybe they'll target different people. Maybe they'll look for different keywords, but the system will still be there. The infrastructure will still exist, and that's the real danger. So yeah, this matters a lot. And here's my final thought. If you're watching this and thinking, well, this doesn't affect me because I'm a citizen, think again, because the systems being built right now, the surveillance infrastructure, the AI algorithms, they're not going away. They're just waiting for the next target. Today it's immigrants who criticize Israel. Tomorrow it might be citizens who criticize corporate power, or citizens who protest climate policy, or citizens who question election integrity. The target changes, but the system stays the same. And that system is designed to silence dissent, to make you think twice before speaking up, to make you wonder if that post is worth the risk. So pay attention, share this video, talk about it, because the only way we stop this is if people actually know it's happening. And right now, most people have no idea. This is the fight of our generation. This is about whether we're going to live in a country where you can speak your mind without fear, or whether we're going to live in a country where an algorithm decides if your opinions are acceptable. And I know which one I'd rather have. The unions filing this lawsuit, they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for all of us because they understand that when the government comes for one group's rights, eventually they come for everyone's. All right, that's it for today. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Are the unions right? Is this really a digital spy network? Or is the government just doing its job? And more importantly, what are you going to do about it? Because at the end of the day, rights aren't protected by courts alone. They're protected by people who give a damn. I'll see you in the next one. Stay informed, stay angry, and don't let them silence you.